Okay, so moving on to the next question. I'm going to go through the rest of these a little bit faster. I know that was a lot of information, but the rest of this will make more sense. So the next question is, how has life improved since your emancipation? Well, honestly, the biggest one, the one that I wrote down, is that I gained more access to the outside world and I lived a slightly less sheltered life, um, meaning that I had the ability to create opportunity for myself. I had more access to opportunities. I had the ability to network, and I had more opportunities to grow. I was very sheltered, as you can imagine, considering we were really poor. And then I was a girl, or I'm a girl. So my parents are super foreign, Caribbean Latinos, old-fashioned, strict. They did not believe that girls needed to go out. Like, I remember the one time I asked my father if I could go to the mall with my friends. He said, "You don't have any friends. I'm your friend. You don't need any friends." Like, and he was so serious. Even though he was always gone, like with his friends when he wasn't at work, like he could have friends, of course. But when it came to us girls, we couldn't have friends. We couldn't do very much of anything. So when I lived with my legal guardian, and I became an emancipated minor, I could go out with my friends. I was also a full-time student and a full-time employee, so I provided for myself when it came to transportation. I paid for Ubers, I paid for me to take the bus, and I could also like Uber myself to my friend's house, or pay for an Uber for them to get home, and just like talk to them the whole time on the phone so they, felt safe. I could just do more. And for my birthdays, which is usually like, I dread my birthday every year. I'm grateful for my birthday's in 2 weeks actually. I'm grateful for my birthday, but when I say I dread it, it's because I tend to. December is a heavy month for me. I believe I was brought to my parents' custody around this time, so there's just like a heaviness. And then like the winter holidays, the winter weather is like a bit gloomy. The winter holidays, I think sometimes I feel expected to like be around other people just so that they don't think I'm like sad and stuff, because I'm like okay with just being with myself. So I just go through a little bit of that, and then I've had traumatic things happen on my birthday as well. So yeah, it's just not necessarily like the most fun time of the year for me. But it got a little, this time of the year got a little bit better just because I finally got to go spend like winter breaks with people, or participate in like the Christmas festivities. I'm not a Christian. I don't celebrate Christmas, but I do enjoy gift giving when I have the money. So that was something that was like really cool for me to do and like really fun for me to do when I could afford to. But yes, I got to grow. I got to have like new experiences. I got to have a couple of birthday parties. I kind of went off on a tangent, but I remember why I mentioned my birthdays, because I got to have birthday parties at my temporary guardian's house. I think I had two, and it was just really cool, because I didn't get to do those kinds of things previously. Another way in which my life improved. This one, okay, so I wrote down that not having anyone to answer to requires me to trust myself and to learn the power of my voice, meaning it forced me to become more assertive and to advocate for myself. And those are very important skills to have as a young adult. So a benefit to becoming emancipated minor is it kind of forced me to develop those skills earlier, to practice self-advocacy or self-advocating, and being assertive when I was a teenager helps me as a young adult to feel a little bit more comfortable doing that, because I am a pretty soft-spoken girl, strongly opinionated but pretty soft-spoken. Like around large groups of people, I tend to do better like one-on-one, or if I just feel more safe with someone, then I'll like be super super talkative like I am right now. But yeah, around other people or like in public, just because like I said, I was so sheltered. I hadn't spent a lot of time like just being out, going to restaurants and just eating. Like, some girls whose father will take them out to eat like a couple times a month or something. I did not have that experience. I didn't have a lot of experience going anywhere, so I was so shy. Honestly, I'm still really shy. But I've grown tremendously compared to how I was when I was 15 and like prior to becoming an emancipated minor. So I would say that's one way in which my life has improved. Since becoming an emancipated minor, I have developed the skill of being assertive and advocating for myself, especially because if I don't do it, literally no one else will. So that's a plus. I would say another way in which my life improved is that I wrote down that it pushed me closer to myself and pushed me on a path of self-discovery and enlightenment. Um, so, and I've given this like a lot of thought. I think that once I became, or I would say after becoming an emancipated minor, I truly began to like think of myself more as an individual. You know, growing up with like, if you are like West Indian, if you're Caribbean or a Caribbean Latino, um, then you may be familiar with like the notion that like there's a lot of groupthink, like we're expected to kind of like move as a unit. Like you can't do anything to tarnish the family name, how the family appears to the outsiders, like in the church or like your parents' friends and stuff. That's very, very important. So even though I lived with my parents for only 7 years, and I questioned if they were even really my parents, and you know, felt like an outcast the whole time, literally just due to the fact that we have the same last name. I felt pressure to not ever disgrace the family. So I, you know, was very much a goody two shoes and a rule follower. Like, and I also just carried a lot of felt a lot of responsibility to bring good things to the family name, or to like look out for everyone. Like, for example, when my younger siblings, I may have talked about this in another video, but like when my younger siblings were struggling in elementary school, I took the initiative to create lesson plans, like to write lesson plans by hand that were curated based on where their areas of improvement were. And then I spent the summers, I tried to teach them during the summers, but literally just because it was me, my older sister was like, oh, y'all don't have to listen to her. If y'all want to go outside and play video games, like go. If you want to go, or if you want to go outside, go. If you want to play video games, go. You don't have to listen to her. And it's like no one else in the home cared that we have the same last name. So it's like, not, I care just because a child shouldn't be struggling in elementary school. If you're struggling in elementary school, what the heck do you think you're gonna do in middle school and in high school? Because it only gets harder, and then afterwards in life, it only gets harder. So if you're already struggling in elementary school, you're not on a good path. You're off to a really bad start. And I felt the need to get ahead of that, and no one else cared. And I just thought that that was shameful. Another example, another thing that comes to mind is one time one of my sisters told me that she received information from someone else that people in the locker room were talking about one of my sisters smelling bad, or, you know, which is, you know, honestly, that's a reality. Like when you grow up in such extreme poverty, like we dealt with like really bad situations. Like oftentimes the electricity would be off or the gas would be off. We would have to heat up water in the microwave and like bathe with that. A lot of the times we had to hand wash our clothes. I had to hand wash my jeans and stuff like that. And so I went to school smelling like mildew sometimes. I didn't even know I smelled like mildew. Like it was really, really, really bad, you know? Anywho, my sister was told that that girls were saying that one of my sisters smelled bad, and she came home and she told me about it. She was laughing about it, and I was like, "What did you tell her? Like, did you let her know, like so you can help her?" And she's like, "Hell no." She's like, "That bitch." Like she basically, I don't want to like repeat those words because I don't really like to talk like that. But she was like, you know, f that girl. Like, no, I'm not gonna tell her. Like, she can do it herself. And honestly, like I'm the kind of person, like no one is allowed to stand next to me or be associated with me or have my last name and be like a piss poor quality version of themselves. No, because I'm not. Anyone who's my friend, anyone, any family would be so happy and so lucky, not happy, but so lucky to have me. Any parent would be lucky to have me as their daughter. Any guy would be lucky to have me as his girlfriend or his wife. Any girl would be lucky to have me as her friend. And I really strongly believe that if you can feel that way about me, I should be able to feel that way about you. Like if you can count on me to look out for you, I should be able to count on you to look out for me. I'm really big on reciprocity in relationships with people. And so, like, and then on top of that, we have the same last name. So even though we were all put in this foster, or we were all brought back from our foster homes at different times, I just think, and I understand that for that reason, we're a bit disconnected from one another. And we're grappling with that. We're all struggling with different emotions and stuff mentally, probably from that separation. But at the end of the day, we're all under the same roof. We have the same last name. We're in a small town. When people see our name in the school, they're like, "Oh, are you such and such's sister and such's brother?" So for that reason, like, why don't you care how we're represented? That was a very big thing for me. That was like a deal breaker for me. That's one of the things that made it easier for me to just leave, because like I said, no one seemed to care about how we all represented ourselves, like, as a collective. And like when it came to my sisters in particular, they showed me they did not really care about me, like, and again, like how I was represented. Like, for example, I really struggled with my hair. I still struggle with my hair. Vanity is not my strong suit. Makeup, like, I mess up my makeup all the time. I mess up my hair all the time. Sometimes it comes out decent. Sometimes it comes out, eh. Guess what? I have to just keep on going. It's like, oh well, I don't have money for other people to do my makeup and do my hair for me. I have to just work with what I have. That's just kind of part of being an independent, displaced, adopted, foster, homeless youth, you name it, an independent person who's young and like providing for yourself, relying on yourself. You have to just figure it out. You develop the skills as you go, and you just get better at over time. And when you don't look that great, it's unfortunate, it's humiliating, but oh well. Like, you learn to pick your battles, and you learn to choose what you're going to care about. Some things you have to learn not to care that much about, but when I had sisters who were both able to do their makeup really, or their hair and their makeup well, it was a tragic thing to see how they didn't care about me. They would literally watch me struggle with my hair in the morning and just leave me. On several occasions, my sisters cut my hair when I was asleep. I literally woke up one time, and I woke up to the sound of shears, of scissors. And I woke up, I just opened my eyes. I saw my little sister. I said, "What are you doing?" And she's like, I'm like, "Girl, I'm the one, like, with half my hair on the pillow. What do you mean?" And she was so scared, like she was possessed, and woke up out of the demonic possession. It was so strange. But she cut my hair. My sister had already done that like the year prior. Another time, I had like braided extensions, and my sister was like, "Oh, let my older sister from the foster home." She was like, "Oh, let me help you take down your hair." And then literally, I told her no, because you're just gonna cut my hair. And like, I should have just listened to myself, because that's exactly what she did. Literally, the first cut, my hair was like down here, right? The first cut, she just did this. She laughed, this evil, evil laugh. And like, they just didn't care. They just sabotaged me for whatever reason. That same sister, like, you would think that we would be close because we grew up in the same foster home. She and I are the only people who have known each other our entire lives. Everyone else from that foster home, we have no communication with. And you know what? She gaslit me one time when she found me on a platform I'm no longer on, and she sent me some choice words, and her white boyfriend were calling me like a white people lover. It was bizarre. But she said to me, I said, "You've always been this way ever since Miami." She said, "Miami never happened." Like, I don't know what was going on up top, but like, there has just always been something off with her. Like, even in the foster home, like I said, I told her, "You've always been so awful to me." Like, she used to threaten to tell our foster mom if I did anything. Like, I remember I was like 5. I ate her freaking flavored chapstick. I was hungry, and it was like kiwi strawberry, and it smelled good. It was flavored. I wanted to try it, so I took like a nibble out of it. And she threatened to tell our foster mom, knowing that the way our foster mother was, is that she would round all the kids up, and she would make us pull our pants down, bend over the couch, and then she would beat us with a belt or a switch from the tree. And it was like, it was messed up, because it didn't matter if any of us or all of us did something. If one child did something wrong, all of us had to suffer. And she was just so evil. She would weaponize that against me. We were hungry all the time, and she would tell me I have to I have to lick the floor, or she would like put up her arm and be like, oh, you have to lick my armpit. Like if I wanted a piece of a Pop-Tart from her. And of course I didn't lick her armpit. I would pretend to lick the floor because I wasn't really going to do it. I just outsmarted her. But it's like, imagine that that's your older sister and that's how she's treating you. And she knows that she's actually related to you and not related to the rest of them. It took me a long time to realize that. And that's what I dealt with. But it continued. It continued into our time with our biological family as well, where she just, like I said, she cut my hair. She sabotaged me one time, just as I guess a sick joke or something like that. She took my toothbrush. She scrubbed her, I'm guessing scrubbed her the in between her butt cheeks with it, and then she set an alarm on her phone to wake up the next day, so the next morning, so that she could watch me brush my teeth with that toothbrush. I was in the bathroom and I smelled something so foul, so of course I did not brush my teeth with it, but I realized it was her because she heard me in the bathroom like, and because it was so foul, you know. And so she heard me and she just let out that evil laugh, the same evil laugh when she cut my hair, the same evil laugh when she branded the back of my neck. And that was the one time that I let her know, because all the other times I just endured it. And they took for granted that I just kept enduring all this mistreatment from all these different angles. But that one time, I was so angry. I was about to cry hot tears, and I said no. Like, I was just like no in my head, because I would have probably normally stayed in that bathroom and cried. But that day, I was like, absolutely not. I went into the room, I grabbed the bunk bed, the metal bars of the bunk bed, and I drew my leg back so hard and I kicked her in her fucking stomach. And it felt so good. I'd do that shit again. I swear to God, I'd do that shit again. Because I let her know that day, stop playing with me. I was so angry at her. And it was because her sickness, her twistedness, inconvenienced my father, would cause me to inconvenience my father. Then I have to have him yelling at me about how he doesn't have 50 freaking cents for anything. Meaning, I was never going to use that toothbrush again, and I would have to then go to my father and like beg him for money for a toothbrush. And I knew he was going to yell at me and be like, I don't have money for a toothbrush, what's wrong with you, all this other, pathetic crap. And that's why I began to cry. I began to cry and then dried up my tears and then went to go do damage to her, because I was about to go through yet another, I calculated it was probably going to be like 2 weeks until my dad got paid again. And then maybe he would be able to give me a couple of dollars or a dollar or whatever to go get a toothbrush. But in that time frame, I'd have to be at school with bad breath, and like, the Black American children already make fun of me for the holes in my shoes and the Sharpie colored tape over it. They already make fun of me for my hair or the lack thereof because you all keep cutting it off. They already make fun of me because I'm too white for them or whatever. Like, now they're going to make fun of me because I smell. Now they're going to make fun of me like for all these reasons that are out of my control. And if I say anything about it, then these children are going to get sent to frickin' Nevada, Nicaragua, Ukraine, the sex trafficking capital of the world, allegedly. Like, I was angry at her because just like my mom, like they were so comfortable sabotaging me, and they didn't think about how that was going to impact my father. Like, of course they didn't care about me and how it impacted me, but also they put me in a position where now my father's going to be upset at me because I am a child who needs something from him. And it's just messed up, Anywho, I say all that to say, I realized that, and later on when I was like 15, I realized that like I was completely on my own in that home. And then I left, and then I became an emancipated minor. And then I really started to think of myself as an individual. I began to think of myself as just me. Like, my lawyers explained to me, when you become an emancipated minor, like, you start your own tree, basically. So I just began to think of the branches on my tree, not as children that I would go on to have, because after being so emotionally scarred and physically abused and so on and so forth, I don't think I would really want to bring children into this wretched world. I can't even save myself, can't even protect myself, can't even explain the nonsensical madness for myself. How could I explain that and justify bringing children into this crap. But more on that later. But yeah, I began to think of the branches on my tree as different parts of my legacy, like different things I wanted to, different parts of my vision. Literally, I wrote a vision for my life and just embarked on a journey ever since becoming an emancipated minor that has led me closer and closer to what I imagine for my like ideal lifestyle, if you will. So that's one of the nice things about becoming an emancipated minor. That's one of the ways in which my life has improved, like being on this journey of enlightenment and self-discovery and having the privilege to really like think for myself and like live for myself. I still would say like my life is pretty like uneventful, except for all the like wildness and obstacles that keep arising. But aside from that, I would say that like things have definitely improved, and being on the journey of self-discovery like as a teenager and specifically as an emancipated minor has helped me. But moving on, because I could go on and on about that. So the next question is, how has life been difficult since getting emancipated? Or since becoming emancipated. Also, my battery is about to die, so if this ends abruptly, I'm just going to switch the battery really quickly. Don't worry about it. But how has life been difficult since becoming an emancipated minor is the next question. Honestly, I have more to say about this because I think my life has become, I think my life was already going to be difficult, but there are just some things that I'll get to. I'll just get to it. So number one, becoming fully responsible for myself is stressful, and it is especially hard as a child because you have to rely on others for shelter and transportation and just other things to meet your basic needs, which makes you really vulnerable. And it leads you to be, you're more likely to be exploited by adults because they know that you don't have any proper guidance and you don't have much support. So I'll go ahead and unpack that. The first part, being fully responsible for oneself, is very difficult. It's very stressful. And I took on that responsibility gradually as a teenager. I mean, when I was a sophomore, junior, and senior in high school, I still lived with my boss. However, just due to the toxicity and the verbal abuse and then like the physical altercation with her, or altercations with her, I did not feel safe in that home. Like the very first year with her, like in 2015, a portion of 2014 to 2015, things seemed blissful. And then I realized things seemed, from 2014 to 2015, or a portion of 2014 into 2015, things seemed blissful. And then I realized that she was no better than my parents. She was going through things in her marriage. She was unhappily married to a man 10 years younger than her and stuff like that. And I think just as he grew, she couldn't control him and manipulate him and stuff. And a lot of the chaos in her relationship, I think, impacted the way that she treated me. But it was her behavior. It was just her own, I think, inability to see how she created a lot of problems for herself and victimized herself and all this other stuff. But I, just like in my parents' home, was the one who became like her, or who I was the one who just was her emotional punching bag. But I was in a situation where I didn't have anybody else. And I think she fully recognized that and exploited that as opposed to guiding me. Like one of the things that she told me to do, or told me that I had to do, was work for her company in order to like, she said it was my way of contributing to the house. So she did not allow me to work for another company. I told her I wanted to get a job working outside of her company when I was a junior, and she said no, that I had to work for her company. And she was in a position where she could kick me out of her house. So I just obeyed her. But that's the kind of stuff that leads to exploitation. Like that's the kind of stuff where those are the kinds of things that make your journey as an emancipated minor difficult. Like when you gravitate towards or find yourself reliant on people who have ill intentions for you, and oftentimes they mask it. You don't even know right away, but understand that whether it's like your friend's parent or just someone you work for who has a child, they're always going to put themselves and their children and their livelihood over you, even if they seem nice and even if they may offer to help you in some ways. Like what I experienced with her and my so-called friend's dad was the same kind of exploitation where with my friend's dad in particular, um, I went through a wrongful eviction at the hands of my legal guardian. I have a video, poor quality video on my channel called Separating from My Legal Guardian. I talk extensively about how she choked me, she called the police, she slapped me like so many times. She was like, what you gonna do about it? What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do about it? And it was just like so awful. Um, just lots of exploitation in that circumstance. And then I went from that situation to a situation where I was living in the basement, an unfinished basement, in an unfinished room. I mean, an unfinished room and an unfinished basement that my so-called friend had told me that, you know, her dad was willing to let me stay in, and her father never gave me a lease. Her father literally worked with lawyers and like served people legal documents for a living. So he knew that he was supposed to provide me with the lease. He just chose not to. And the arrangement kept changing, and he would just tell me I had to do landscaping, and then I had to take care of his dogs, and I had to do all this stuff. And it was like never ending. And it was exploitation. It was him knowing that I didn't have anywhere else to go. I was 19 and I was fully responsible for myself. And I literally just didn't have anywhere else to go. So he just kept adding things. There were no limits on what I could do. And then like he just disrespected me. He made fun of me. Like literally one time after I finished doing all this stuff in his garden for him, he said to me, he was sitting in the chair laughing. He told me to go get like Diet Coke for him or something like that. And I came back, I gave it to him and he laughed. He's like, oh, this is probably the most amount of time you spent outside. Your vitamin D levels must be in the trash. And he made fun of me for being a 19-year-old working two jobs, writing a poetry collection that I was doing for my own healing, like for my own therapy. He made fun of me for just not being out on the town. Like, where am I supposed to be? Like, I'm 19 and I have no stability. Like at that age, I wanted to join the Peace Corps. I wanted to be in the Peace Corps, but the Peace Corps doesn't pay anybody enough money to go like pack up your life, put it in a storage unit, and then just go travel around the world for what, like $2,000? What adult can do something like that? Most definitely not like a 19-year-old or anyone who doesn't have a place to return to. Like my concern was that I wouldn't have a place to return to and they're not paying me enough money to keep my stuff in a storage unit. So, you know, those are the kinds of sacrifices that you make when you're an emancipated youth or a displaced youth, homeless youth, foster youth, adopted youth who's, you know, on your own. Like, unfortunately, those are the kinds of things that like I couldn't pursue because of my circumstance. He made fun of me for being at home building brands and building and teaching myself skills so that I could establish financial stability for myself and like passive income for myself. And he did all of that knowing that that I didn't have anywhere else to go. And then when he finally did want me to go, he created this situation where he like gave, I don't want to go like too deep into it because I need to move on. It's because I need to move on. But he just like created this situation, yelled at me over the phone, blamed me for something I did not do. Literally, I did everything that he told me to do on my day off, and I just left for 30 minutes to go sell freaking body butter, like 2 bottles of body butter that I made because I needed that $24 so that I could go buy food, because he wasn't paying me enough money and my retail job wasn't paying me enough money. So I literally stepped out for 30 minutes. I came back. I was there in time to open the door for them when they came back from Thailand. And he was just upset at me for choosing to do something for myself. He sent me this message saying, you know, I am still deeply upset about that went down last week. I needed you during a very tough time and you disappointed me. I think that you need to take a step back and look at the totality of your circumstances and the role that I play. And he said some other stuff. I have all the emails and all the text messages. And basically, what I took that to mean is that I got you by your ovaries. I'm in complete control because you need me for shelter. So the next time I tell you to do something, you better not disobey my order or whatever, because it's not like I did that. Like, it was just some weird chaos that he created. And then he doubled down saying he wanted to call me and let me and express his feelings more. I'm like, what the fuck is this? You have all these feelings about what? Like, talk about these fragile men and their egos. This is a 40 something year old freaking man, so-called man. And this is, you're sending me emotionally charged emails about your feelings. Like, what the fuck, dude? But anywho, I did not appreciate him calling me and accusing me of lying and downplaying my necessity to go sell body butter so that I could go to the grocery store, which is exactly what I did. And then he said, you say that you needed to go get groceries from the store, but you help yourself to my food in the refrigerator all the time. First of all, he was hardly home. His daughter spent half the week at their mom's place, so there was hardly any food in his refrigerator. And he hadn't seen me upstairs in his refrigerator or upstairs in their place in so long, except for when I was letting the dogs out or something. So immediately I began to raise my voice, which is something people are not used to, because like I said, I'm a pretty soft-spoken girl. I don't take too well to mischaracterizations and misrepresentation. So when he accused me of that, I said, who's in your refrigerator every day? That's when it was over. I couldn't give a fuck about respect anymore. And I said, when is the last time you see me upstairs? And then he told me, oh, okay, well then what about my laundry pods? You use my laundry pods. This is a so-called man. This is a sad excuse of a fucking human specimen who wants to yell at a teenage girl, a 19-year-old girl, about laundry pods. I reminded him that that was a part of the agreement. If he gave me a written lease, he would have known and would have been able to refer to the document to remind himself that the use of the laundry pods as well as the laundry was a part of the money that he was charging me. He was charging me so much money for this raggedy room that had a huge hole in the wall, and then like the just all this stuff. If I put the pictures in this video, most people would be like, what the girl, you were paying like what, $300 something for that? Exploitation. He told me, okay, so then since you want to scream and holler, then you could get out of my house in 3 months, since you want to scream and you want to holler. Because he didn't have anything to say once I reminded him about the laundry pods. Exploitation. He exploited the fact that like I was powerless in that situation. He told me to leave, and then he sent me a text message saying this serves as a 90-day notice, exploiting the fact that I had no idea that you cannot send someone a text message as a 90-day notice. So for the next 3 months, I was literally so stressed out about where I was going to live because I didn't make enough money from either of my jobs. But you know, I had no idea all this time that I could have actually, that I could have told him he needs to take me to court and evict me the right way. I learned that stuff when I went down to town hall and I told them what was going on, and I told them this man's name, and they happened to have all gone to school with him, so they were clowning and just laughing. And I told them things, and they were like, okay, where's the 90-day notice? And I told them, oh, I have it in a text. They started laughing again. They're like, you can't send somebody. They were like, girl, go get your stuff and go put it back in this man's house. But at this point, I didn't want to be there with him any longer because I didn't trust him. I was no longer going to work for him. Like, he showed me his bare anus, figuratively speaking, of course. He showed his ass. He showed himself to be an ass. And what he showed me is exactly why his daughter does not mind telling people in the town about him. Like, I realize now this is why your daughter doesn't live with you. This is why she rather be out in the street. This is why she rather be out with all these other people jeopardizing her future, compromising herself. This is why she'd rather be making all these bad decisions, because you are the problem. You and your fragile ego, you and your desire to control and suppress and exploit people. That's why nobody wants to be around you. I get it now. I just don't appreciate that she didn't give me a heads up. I had no idea she wasn't going to be living in that house with me when I agreed to go live over there. But it's okay. I appreciate the opportunity. I learned, I learned a lot of things. But this man exploited me. And when the city was involved, or the township got involved, he said to them, oh, okay, because they were like, she can sue you because this is a... Well, I hope that this is in focus. Because, okay. The little viewfinder thing is like kind of annoying. I don't know how to disable it. Anyway, I think the last thing that I was saying is, okay, so I had to, like I said, my battery was dying, so I just changed it. Anyhow, so when the township got involved, they told my so-called friend's dad that I was in a position to sue him for wrongful eviction because he was wrongfully evicting me. He never gave me a lease, and the proper way to do things is to take someone to court. When that person is receiving mail at that address, that is their address, and so you have to take them to court. And he knew all of this, of course, but he was just exploiting the fact that I had no idea. So anywho, when they told him that he was engaging in illegal activity, essentially, he said, okay, well, you know what? She can come stay with me for 1 more month. But then after that, if she doesn't figure out something, then I'm going to take her to court and I'm going to evict her myself. And what I understood that to be a power move. I was in a position to be able to sue him. He was saying I could come back and live with him, not because he really wanted me there. He just wanted to be in a position where he could sue me because, of course, it would reflect poorly on his business and on his, family's name to have a public document, and on the public, to have a document in the public record showing that he wrongfully evicted, a teenage girl. I may have been like 20 by that point. But, same difference, a girl 20 years younger than him, and that's supposed to be his daughter's friend, So I recognized that it was a power move. Even my therapist was like, do not go back to that house. This is just about power. And I'm glad, things worked out. My friend's dad and my friend helped me put my stuff in a storage unit, and my friend, I called her and asked her, or I texted her and asked her if her mom could take me to a shelter. She was like, why do you need to go to a shelter? And I told her what happened. And fortunately, her mom let me stay with her and my friend where they lived. And they came and they scooped me up. And I was there literally just for 12 days because then I found my first apartment. I went through all kinds of tragedy there. So, yeah, it just keeps on, the obstacles just keep piling on for whatever reason. But yeah, I just went down that tangent just to give an example of like the kind of exploitation that I experienced, because I want you to understand, if you are an aspiring emancipated minor, these are the kinds of things that know that you can't see coming, because you only know you know how to recognize the forms of abuse and toxicity that you are familiar with, but it comes packaged differently with other people, and it's not easy to see that they don't have good intentions for you sometimes. So I was only with my so-called friend's dad for about a year and a couple of months, but that was enough time for him to get a lot of free labor out of me, and to yell at me and berate me for not being comfortable with seeing my parents, and all this weird stuff that didn't make sense. But like I said, I'm just glad that I got out of it, because I knew there was just a lot of unnecessary things. But ego is a trip, man. Another way in which life has become difficult for me